first got interested in forensic pathology, I thought that an exciting thing that I would do would be figuring out people that had been killed and no one had realized that it was a murder. And I've done that a few times. But what I didn't realize that equally important, and pretty much an equal number of times, I'd be presented a case which I was told was in fact murder, but I would find that it wasn't murder at all. I remember a particularly vivid example that came through our office. I work in the southeast of the United States, where it's hot and humid during the summer, and this particular death occurred in late July. The woman was an alcoholic. She lived in a little shack, just a tumble-down shack with her father. They had no utilities, no air conditioning, no light, nothing. The father thought that something might be wrong with his daughter, so he went to the nearest neighbor's house who had a telephone to call for help. Paramedics got there. The house was dark. It was like an oven inside. It was so hot. They couldn't see, so they grabbed her up, put her on a gurney, transported her into the ambulance and started on their way to a local hospital. Tried to resuscitate her. They could not resuscitate her. Then, when they stopped trying to resuscitate her, the various physicians started looking at her, and they saw that she had these purple marks all over her body and these raw, ugly wounds on her wrists and ankles. And so they got to wondering what could explain findings such as that. And the best that they could figure out was that this woman was being held captive, that this man, perhaps he was her father, perhaps not, but whatever, he was keeping her bound as some sort of slave for whatever evil purposes he had in mind or enjoyed. And so they contacted the police to report a homicide. And the police said, well, let's let the medical examiner look at the body and let's see what the medical examiner has to say about it, and then we'll act. The physicians involved thought that was a little too slow. They were interested in getting up a gang right then and going and catching this guy and punishing him as they thought he deserved. But the body came to our office and we examined it. And what we found was a woman. She was middle-aged, but she looked older than that. And she was an alcoholic. She had cirrhosis, it turned out. But the really important thing was all this purple discoloration and these raw marks that the hospital physicians were seeing were early decomposition. Those sorts of changes usually don't develop for about 24 hours after a person dies at room temperature. But of course, this woman was in a place that was hotter. Not only that, but the real reason that she died was because she had pneumonia. And often pneumonia goes hand in hand with sepsis, that is, bacteria seeding through the blood. And so, in that circumstance, you've actually circumvented the first 24 hours of decomposition. She had gone from dying to decomposing in a matter of minutes rather than in a matter of 24 hours. So all these changes that the physicians were misinterpreting as injuries were actually postmortem changes caused by decomposition. So the question might arise, why did she have these injuries on her wrists and ankles? And the answer is because that's where the paramedics picked her up to put her on the gurney. The medical personnel themselves had caused those injuries, but they didn't realize it because physicians in this country just aren't familiar with seeing what a decomposing body looks like. That is, all physicians except for forensic pathologists. But happily, we were able to recognize this for what it was and classify the death as a natural death. Sometimes attorneys think that we don't, that is, we forensic scientists don't help people who have been accused of crimes because we're called to testify in people who have been accused of crimes. But what they don't understand is, in this circumstance, I had already decided there was no crime, so no charges were ever filed against the father of this woman. He was never falsely accused of something that never even happened in the first place. That is an exciting application of forensic pathology.